What's going on, everybody? This is Corbin, the Serpentine Skipwith, and I'm here with my very special guest. If you want to introduce yourself.
Yo, 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 this is Supermax Hernandez from the OG LAX. What's up, guys?
Uh, Thank you again for being on this with me. I know I said this earlier, but it really is an honor.
Not a problem, man.
Love it. All right, so the first thing I want to go over with you is pretty much your early life, your backstory. Tell me a bit.
Yep.
Tell me a bit about how you grew up. What life was like for you, your upbringing.
My father was a Green Beret for 30 years in the U.S. military, and so we moved every 3 or 4 years, and finally he retired in Houston, Texas, and that's when life got weird because everything was strict and formulated and military, and then you go to normal civilian life, and man, there was a whole new world out there. I went to school in North Houston. There was probably 4,000 kids in this high school. Less than 100 was all the minorities combined.
Wow.
So it was all white kids. So this is where I first experienced anything about racism or what anyone looks as different and stuff like that. Because in the military, everyone's green because you want to be on the same team. And man, I learned that things are not what they all seem to be. And it was a quite different experience, man.
Was your family religious?
My mother was. She was very mixed. She passed away in '95, but she was white, Mexican, and Choctaw Indian. And my mother's side of the family was evangelists. So unfortunately, being a rambunctious kid, I probably got baptized 4 or 5 times before I was 16. And I mean, she grew up in a household where there was no TV, just AM gospel radio. I have three great aunts that are famous gospel singers from the 50s. So it was a big clash of my dad was Catholic, my mom was, I guess, strict Baptist.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was brought up Mormon. I don't know if you've heard that religion. Mormon.
Oh, yeah.
My parents are still they're still in the faith. I'm non, like I don't go to church anymore, but I grew up my first 18 years of my life. I was in a strict household myself, or at least I think I was.
So now you're a Jack Mormon.
An ex-member, I think is what they call.
That's what they call that in the States is if you're having issues with being a Mormon and you're not doing everything in the Mormonism way, you're called a Jack Mormon.
Ah, there you go. You taught me something.
No. I used to date a girl many moons ago.
Um. So okay. So you're in school. When did you start? Or actually, should I say, were you always involved in like in sports? Were you always kind of sports, physical activity, things like that?
Yes. From little league to basketball, then finally my last 2 years of high school. I didn't play football to my last 2 years of high school because I didn't want to go to the military. My dad told me if I couldn't get a scholarship for athletics or academics, I'm joining the military. And man, I see how strict and things for life was for 30 years of my dad's life. I didn't want that for me. And man, I tried my ass off to do anything but go to the military. And I was very, very blessed, and I got a athletic scholarship for football.
Oh, nice. So I'm curious. In high school, how tall were you?
I was 6 foot, 200 pounds.
Fucking hell, 6 foot playing these sports. You must have been a giant. Oh.
Well, I wanted to play basketball, and basketball you're like 6'6", 6'8", so it was for that high school, especially, and I'm trying to be racist or prejudice or anything like that. The first time I ever lifted weights, I did the squats. I squatted 405, and that was like number 7 all time in the high school. So I said, "Man, these weights hurt. Let me go play basketball while y'all lift weights." And then I go to college, and everyone's benching over 400 pounds. So that's when I learned how to lift weights. Cause man, those big guys were just throwing me around. So it was definitely an eye opening experience going from high school to college.
Yeah. Do you still follow World's Strongest Man stuff on TV? Do you follow that profession? Do you watch it?
I used to. I broke my neck in 2008. No, so I'm sorry, 2009. 2009. And I haven't lifted weights since. I'm doing mostly body weight exercises, dips, pull-ups, burpees, things like that. But I mean, you saw my physique from all the way from when I first started to 2009. I was every bit of 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was, I didn't care what my waist looked like as long as I was squatting more than everyone and benching more than everyone. And now I wish I did it like this earlier because now I can buy clothes off the rack. I don't have to get, tailored clothes. And I feel a lot better, more comfortable at 250 pounds than I did at 300 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. So going to the wrestling aspect, when did you, which part of your life, so how early in your life did you realize, all right, I want to do this. This looks cool. Let me give this a try.
Brother, I've been trying to do this since I was like 10, 11, 12 years old because my father, like I said, was in the military. So every 3 or 4 years, we have to move to a different region of the country. And so I got to experience Georgia Championship Wrestling, AWA Wrestling, the Von Erichs Wrestling, Houston Wrestling. And I was just captivated because you get that all the time. In every part of the country back then, you're just watching wrestling. And I go, man, I want to do that. And my parents said I had to go to college before I even thought about doing that. And it took me all the way till I was 24 to actually start.
Yeah. So, looking at watching you wrestle, obviously, like all the years I've watched you wrestle, who inspired your wrestling style? Because I know back in the day, it wasn't very common for a big wrestler to be so athletic at the same time as you are. So who did you watch or see that could do stuff like that?
The main guy is, we all watched wrestling when we're kids and stuff like that. And then you had a small phase in your life where your parents say, hey, grow up, get a job, stuff like that. And then I was watching ECW, the November to Remember, Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka. And I saw Mike Awesome, I go, man, I want to be that guy. Big 6'5", 200-pound dude, smooth ass mullet. I go, man, and he's just diving and throwing people around. I go, I want to be him. And in high school, like Al Bundy from the TV show, I still had the highest vertical in my high school, a vertical jump, because I could always dunk a basketball. And so I could always jump real well. And I just when I finally went to wrestling school, I started doing the same things I saw on ECW, and man, I was hooked.
I absolutely love Mike Awesome. I still remember in my head the ECW One Night Stand 05. Yep. His match. It's like my favorite match of that night. I remember that very clearly.
Yes, sir.
That was a good match. So when did you debut in your first wrestling company, and what was your first match like, if you can remember?
I think 97. Mm-hmm. And it was a local indie at Galveston, Texas, outside of Houston. And it was at a Boys and Girls Club. And my trainer told me Wednesday that Saturday I was going to have a match. And to find gear, get a wrestling name, all that, I go, man. So, of course, being every bit of 305, which is probably more like 320, there's no way I'm finding stuff in 2-3 days. So I go to the show, and this how was it back then? You borrow bits and pieces of other guys' gear that they had left over. So these guys like, what size shoe you wear? I wear size 13. The only person in the whole locker room that had 13 was this guy who had silver glittery boots. So I wore those. I couldn't find any spandex or anything to fit me. So I don't know if you guys remember MC Hammer from the late 80s, early 90s. He had a pair of bright pink pants exactly like that. That's the gear I wore the very first match. I came out the curtain at a boys and girls club, and before the even announcer started saying my name, these kids started chanting Kazam from the Shaq movie. So that's all I remember. I mean, the match was probably horrible. I think it was horrible. I just remember this like 200 kids chanting Kazam every time I did a move. So it was very, very humbling, man.
Um, so what was your actual stage name back then?
Brother, I maybe I don't even remember. Just all I remember was those bright pink MC Hammer pants and the silver glittery boots, and that's embedded in my mind.
That's amazing. I wish I could have been there, seen that. It would have been a pretty.
Oh, looking back, I wish I had the video because I mean, I can't believe that happened to me. Everyone, everyone who gets into wrestling thinks, man, I'm gonna be this cool badass. I'm gonna be like The Rock or Stone Cold or something like this. And you come out the curtain, the kids are chanting Kazam, man. It's like you just want to crawl in the ring and hide.
Fucking hell. Speaking about ring names, as I was looking into, I could be, I found this somewhere. Were you really, look, so at one point in your career, were you really called the double sheik, double iron
Yes,
sheik?
sir. Yes, sir. That was in I wrestled in All Japan, and it was very awkward because in the Japanese style wrestling, there's very, very few gimmicks. Well, Wally Yamaguchi, the guy who was in Kaientai for WWE, was the liaison for All Japan, and he got me in. I had to do a shoot fight and then an indie tag tournament, and then me and my partner went to All Japan. So we were supposed to be the nephews of the Iron Sheik. So you can imagine how that was very not well taken. I mean, we came out, we looked like sheep herders and the big ground and this stuff up here, and then we wrestled in singlets, and it was bad. But I mean, I'm wrestling with all Japan, hanging out with Dr. Dusty Williams, Mike Barton, Mike Rotundo, Johnny Smith from England, and George Hines, who later became a tag partner there. So it was a great learning experience for me because as growing up in Texas on the Indies, we really didn't have no one mentoring you how to get better. So I had a crash course with Dr. Dusty Williams, which was very, very intense.
Wow, that's a crazy story. Pretty, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to find out that was true, the double line sheet. So I also found out, if this is true, that you were so at one point before arriving at TNA, you were a jobber for WWF.
I did at least 3
Yep.
dark matches.
What was that like?
Um, Awkward. I didn't know what was going on back then. It's not like how it is now, where you send your tapes in and everyone knows how good you can work before you get there. Back then, they let all the indie talent, they lined you up in the back in a straight line, and the guys who needed matches picked you on just based how you looked. And I had a match against Crash Holly, which was really good, and he was awesome. He led me through that match, and I actually looked like I could be on TV. Then I wrestled Joey Abs from the Main Street Posse. That was kind of cool. And then I got the privilege of getting squashed by Haku.
Oh wow.
So I never wanted to do WWE style wrestling. It was, I'm not trying to be negative or like that, but it was, at that time it was very boring. And but my wife at the time wanted me to do it because obviously she makes the most money in wrestling there. But I wanted to see the world. I wanted to wrestle in Japan and England and Mexico and just every place I wanted to wrestle. That's what I wanted to do first, and then figure out where I wanted to go after that.
Yeah. Did you ever meet Vince McMahon?
Um, no, I got the fist bump Shane McMahon.
That's something.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, so we go from the WF and then you start doing dark matches for TNA, if I'm not mistaken,
Yep.
around the year
Yes.
2000,
Um,
2001,
I think it was 2002.
2002. Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what was your first experience going into a company like TNA?
It was back then they didn't have the budget or the production nowhere near um WWF at the time, so it was pretty much like an indie show with cameras and extra lights. It wasn't the same. You're not even close. And back then, you you got yourself the show. You know, it was in Nashville, and you paid your own expense, and you got paid this.
Wow.
And I did that 2 or 3 times. I go, man, this is not for me, and I didn't do it anymore. And then I think 2 or 3 months later, they called me to be on the show, and that's how I got started. I started um, as a paid performer since in 2003.
Yeah. Now, now I have to ask, like, being a professional wrestler, do you ever have it? Or back in the day, did you ever find it hard to explain to maybe family and friends who aren't wrestling fans per se, explain to them the whole scripted fake thing? Is it hard to be like, look, we do take bumps. It's not all fake. Like, is it hard to or awkward to explain that?
Yes. Um, it's probably worse now. Back then it was a little bit easier because wrestling was more popular with DX and NWO and stuff like that. But man, it's super hard. I will not to this day right now. You ask my wife, I won't go to a bar, and I'll go like a bar and like restaurant, you know, like a Chili's or something like that. But I won't go to a normal bar because there's always going to be some dude there. Hey, what do you do for a living? And heaven forbid you say pro wrestling. They go, you mean the MMA stuff or that fake shit? And then, man, when you get that 4 or 5 times in one night, it's time, it gets a little bit old. So,
Yeah. So it's like, yeah, I was gonna say like obviously you can give as little or as much detail as you want on this subject, but how like to someone who obviously isn't familiar with the wrestling business or the
yep.
art of pro wrestling, how would you best describe, like taking slams onto the ring or the use of weapons, all this stuff? How would you like explain like how much of that is legitimately like hurtful and sore on your body?
Well, like I tell a lot of people that are just getting or not being disrespectful, but just asking about what is pro wrestling like. And I just tell them, I go, man, if you punch me 5 times in the face and I don't bleed or bruise, maybe that part's not real. But when I throw you across that ring, that part is definitely real because, look at the top of my head. That's all chair shot to the last 20 years.
Wow.
So there are certain parts that you cannot fake or script or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. No, I feel for wrestlers, because of that. It's like I can't imagine the scrutiny. I can't imagine the over explaining you have to do every time to non-believers of the sport.
It's better to say you do something else for a living.
Yeah. Um, because you have spent time over the years in you have spent a few years in Japan over your career. Would
Yeah,
you say that because I know they have the famous strong style over
yeah.
there, like would you say they're a lot more authentic? They're a lot more hard hitting in Japan than
Um, I would think so, and also, with the fans appreciate what's happening more, and if you watch Japanese wrestling, and all the fans are students. That's why they're so quiet. They're watching. They're not, they're not mad because there's no, they're not bored or like that. They're actually watching. They're a student of the game. They're seeing, man, do you really know how to wrestle? So like when the beginning of the match, when they're doing the chain wrestling, they're watching to see if you know how to chain or is that guy leading you into a good match. And that's before they can get behind you if they want to cheer you or boo you. And I mean, I personally like the crowds like in Europe, like Germany and England and Ireland, where they get all beer and rowdy and stuff like that. But man, you have to appreciate the Japanese fans because they're not going to get behind a wrestler unless they know he knows the game.
yeah, yeah. No, that's fair enough. I love it myself, and as I told you on message, I was watching it today, the latest pay per
Yeah,
view. So
yeah.
I'm a massive fan. All right, so TNA now. Tell me, how was LAX born? How did that start?
Well, LAX was originally was Conan, Homicide, and Apollo from Puerto Rico, and it wasn't clicking. It was, if you watch it in '05 and early '06, it was not doing very well. Whether it was storylines, whether it was creative or something, but it wasn't clicking. And then Apollo started having some issues where he couldn't make flights and stuff like that, so he got let go. So, brother, I'm just gonna be 1,000% honest. You know how I got the role in LAX? They needed a big Hispanic guy, not hey, give me the best wrestler around. No, they say they just needed the biggest Hispanic guy, and man, they remember me from a couple years ago before that, and I was wrestling in Mexico with a mask on and as Mr. Texas, and they wanted me to come back. I go, man, I got it made down here. I'm only making like $700 a week, but man, my rent is like 200 a month, and I'm living like a king. I go, nah, I'm good, and man, just try it one time, just like crack. The crack dealer will tell you, just try it once. Like, man, all right. So I took the flight from Mexico to Orlando, and they got me to sign paperwork, and that's how it went. I mean, it wasn't no big deal. It wasn't like a big secret signing like this. Is man, they needed a big Hispanic guy to complement Homicide. That's all. That's how LAX started.
Yeah, yeah. And man, the just I can't express enough just the impact, and I think the cult following that LAX ended up growing and having. You guys are one of my top five. So in my opinion, top five modern teams of all time. LAX is always in conversation. You, Homicide, and Conan,
Yep.
specifically that formation to me
Yep.
is engraved in my memory as a wrestling fan. You guys just end up making pure magic across the wrestling spectrum. It's just
Well, the weird part about that was I started in LAX in March of '06. By early '07, maybe January, February, Conan quits TNA. So we were only a faction for about 9 or 10 months. And then me and Homicide teamed from '06 to '09 for only 3 years. And just the impact from merchandise, from the swagger we had to, I mean, just the matches we had and things like that. LAX just went from the version with me and Homicide to Santana Ortiz and then to Slice Boogie and Danny Limelight. So there's actually, how many, you know, tag groups have you ever seen where they elevated to three different, championships with three different styles of wrestlers. So it never happened, and you have to put it in your mind that man, Conan has some creative genius to keep this name still going.
Yeah. Speaking of Conan, working with such a legend as Conan, what was that like for you? And did he teach you anything about the wrestling business that or in your personal life, that you take with you to this day?
Uh, Man, it was, you gotta realize Conan's he's a legend, you know, in Mexico and WCW and this worldwide. And this is a business. Pro wrestling is a business. I learned everything outside the business from him. I learned everything in the ring from Homicide for television wrestling, and those guys will always be part of me until I stop wrestling.
Yeah, yeah. Just watching the chemistry all three of you had, at least that era of LAX. Just like him doing all the talking and the passion he had, just the way he said things. It was just mesmerizing. He made every match seem pay-per-view worthy. Every match you're about to have. At the moment, I'm up to where you find the Dudleys in that Dudley feud. But just the way from them attacking Conan and then you guys attacking his uncle. It's just like this whole thing. It's like he elevated to such a prestige level. It's just undescribable.
Having Conan on the mic versus Bubba Ray at the beginning of that feud is what made LAX to that next level, because very few people can get on the mic with Bubba and hang, and not only can Conan can hang and probably 5 levels above him, and that's what really made us.
Yeah, it's crazy because the whole time I'm watching this feud, I'm just like I'm full pro LAX, like I'm on their side. I'm like, dude, like like in my head, you guys have me so invested as a fan. I'm like, the Dudleys attack Conan first. It's their fault. They didn't, so it's just like here I am all invested, and it's just crazy. But I have to know. So a question I have is, I know that you do your big toss as your in ring finisher, or you did back then. The big toss across the ring, that was one of your signature moves, and without naming names, if you don't, without naming names, did you ever have anyone that you worked with in TNA who wasn't comfortable being tossed, and you had to work around that at all?
Brother, that's like at least half the roster. The first time they saw me do that, I think I did it to Sanjay Dutt. And I came to the back. We had a really good match with me and Homicide versus Sanjay and Ron Killings. I came to the back, man, great match. But I was straight up, Sean, I'm never taking that. I must have had at least 8 people come up to me and say, "Hey, I'm never taking that." It was awkward.
So how do you work around it in that?
Well, I mean, man, back then it was a little bit different because you have an agent that helps structure the match and stuff like that. So there's that. If the creative team wants the border toss finish, and that guy don't want to take the border toss, there's negotiations. There's pep talks or something to get this gentleman to try to take this, and if not, we have to go to a different finish. But I mean, I distinctly remember there's probably at least 5 or 6 times where they said no matter what, no.
Yeah, fair enough. It looks intense. I can feel it as a fan.
Oh my, it's a different move. It's something that you have to have 100% trust in the person throwing you. If you don't have 100% trust, something's going to go wrong. And I've been doing that move since 1999, and it's awkward. You're flying backwards, and tucking your chin and hoping that nothing else happens. So,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, but I
Um,
mean, with homicide's taking it outside, from inside the ring to outside. So, I mean, obviously you trust me, but I get it, man. I mean, back then I didn't get it, but now I get it. We're wrestling 3 to 4 or 5 times a week, and you take that bad bump, and man, you're out for a couple months.
yeah. Was there anyone on the roster back in those times, like, more of the heavier wrestlers like Abyss or Samoa Joe or Rhino? Was there anyone that you felt like you felt afraid to do it to? Afraid that that you wouldn't get the full momentum you wanted?
Well, it's really basic. I'm about 6'2". If I can't put my arms around you to pick you up, I can't do the move. So I think the biggest guy that I did it to was in TNA was probably Devon Dudley.
Yeah.
And I still couldn't put my arm around his waist at the time. Now he's in great shape, but back then he was not.
Yeah.
So I had to put him on the second rope
Yeah.
and grip him that way. So, I mean, if you were over, say, 300 pounds, it wasn't happening.
Yeah. Nah, fair enough. And also, since it's fresh in my memory, like if you can remember back in your feud in your guys' feud with the Dudleys, you often had the LAX cronies come out to help win the matches. Were any of those cronies at the time Santana and Ortiz?
No.
I was always curious. I'm like,
no, the first time I wrestled those guys was 2016. They were very young guys.
Yeah, fair enough. Have you been following their career in AEW so far and seeing how they've progressed from LAX?
To be honest, I'll be honest with everyone. If I'm not on the show, I don't watch.
Fair enough.
We were talking about the New Japan last night. I have friends that are in Japan. Gallows and Anderson are really good friends of mine, and I don't even watch their shows. So it's different, man. Good for them. I hope that everything goes good in their career and everyone else. But man, I have a wife, I have kids, I have other things going on besides watching other people wrestle.
Yeah. Nah, that's completely understandable. I get that. So I know in TNA after Conan left TNA, you started working with Hector Guerrero, correct?
Yes.
So what was that like going from Conan to another legend, Hector?
Man, Hector's the man. He is the man. We had a great time with him. His whole family is legendary. I mean, his dad invented the camel clutch, Gory Groves. I mean, the only thing different was, where it appeared where Conan would preach hate and disrespect for minorities, stuff like this. Hector was always 1,000%. Let's talk about the positive, 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 positive. So if we realized when we were with Hector, we were never heels. He only wanted to promote the positivity of Hispanics, and it helped. Give us a different look. But we always want to be heel. And so it was a little bit different, but man, we learned a lot how to be more engaging as babyface. It helped us a lot.
Yeah. I've always, watching, rewatching you guys in LAX, it really makes, like it really reminds me of my dream match I've always had of you and Homicide versus Chavo and Eddie. Like that would have been just, in my opinion, the perfect dream match.
Most definitely, those. I had the privilege of tagging with Chavo for 2 years in TNA, and I couldn't agree more. That would have been awesome.
Yeah, the Los Guerreros versus LAX.
Oh.
It'd have been great. All right, so let's talk about your time post TNA. What was that like for you?
Post TNA?
Yeah, so after your LAX, so after LAX was no longer a thing, and you ended up being in a different faction, the Mexican American.
Yeah.
Yep. So post all that stuff.
Man, that was really rough because Hogan and Bischoff came in, and for some reason they didn't like anything about LAX. They didn't want nothing to do with LAX. They didn't like, they were, I don't know what the deal was, but they didn't like it at all. And so they broke me and Homicide up. And then that's when, man, I said, I got with management and see if I can do a talent swap in AAA. And then so the whole 2010 from like April to December, I wrestled with AAA in Mexico. I lived in Mexico City, and then I came every now and then to sporadic TV shots for TNA. I was supposed to go down there. Obviously, my Spanish, I speak Spanglish to get better Spanish and get a tag partner to come back. And it did not work out because I was supposed to come. I don't know if everyone watches AAA. Zorro at the time was a very good friend of mine, and he was supposed to come in and do a tag with me as well as the girls. And I really don't want to talk about the how he did not become that, but the other man came in and Matt Barrera as Anarchia, and it was just downhill from that.
Yeah.
I mean, look what happened. The girls, you know, became famous in WWF.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sarah Stock was a trainer for NXT. Selena Vega she was barely on our show, and now she's a superstar in WWE. She's grown awesome. And when your best partner is the female, and they're before they do intergender matches, it's not a good start.
Yeah. 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 See, like I can't imagine how frustrating it must be when when creative changes are made that are beyond your control, and you have something good. We know, the fans are supporting the good thing that you have, and then creative just comes in and takes it away. It just must be super frustrating.
Man, I just you brought me back like 10 years ago, and I'm still upset. There's people at every house show, every TV that's just heckling my partner at the time. They didn't even give him a chance because they were so used to seeing me with Homicide. People are chanting, "Where's Homicide?" Then when the guy got in the ring, they would ask him. They would chant at house shows, "Please tag out." They wouldn't even get in the ring. So I mean, they didn't give the gentleman a chance, and he never quite fit in. So it was uphill, and probably easily my worst experience in TNA.
Yeah.
Just when you're forced to do something that you know is not working, and you're trying to paint. I mean, this is the better version of LAX. It's not even close. It's not even 1/10, and you're force feeding down people's throats, and no one cares. It was rough.
Did you know Homicide before LAX?
Well, yes. Fun fact: Homicide was doing main events for Ring of Honor for years. Guess who was doing the pre-show matches? Trying to get a spot on the Ring of Honor main shows. So we'd pass by, hey, what's going on? How you doing, sir? Because he was one of the founding fathers of Ring of Honor, killing it, and getting high profile matches. And I was doing those pre-matches, those 6-man, 8-mans, hoping that I get a spot on the show. And who would have known 4 years later we'd been LAX?
Yeah. It just talking to you brings me back so much nostalgia of LAX. It's so cool. But I did hear something. I heard I'm not sure. I mean, most likely, if this is true, this I can imagine this being associated with when Conan was around with you. But I heard that apparently during LAX you signed a contract or you had a clause that you couldn't interact with the white audience. That's true.
Well, it wasn't a clause. It was when we first started together, when I was us three. If you weren't a person of color, they didn't want us, like because remember we were coming through the crowd where most people came through the tunnel. We had our own entrance. We were instructed to not slap hands or interact with anyone that wasn't of color. And I would never forget because, you know, growing up on the indies and different places, if there's a kid, it don't matter if he's white, black, green, whatever, you slap his hand, give him a little five because that's a big interaction the kids want to see. I'll never forget this little 8-year-old kid was like this. and I just looked, I mean, I stared at him for about, it seemed like forever, probably like a second or two, but I go, man, if I slap this kid's hand with that camera right in my face, I would get fired. I just closed my eyes and walked away, man. It was awesome.
Did you ever have any moments? This this doesn't have to strictly be LAX, but any moments in your wrestling career where you've had a tough time for whatever reason staying in character? Something made you break character or almost?
Um, brother, every TNA house show that I did with the Dudley Boys or 3D at the time, because they were having fun. They wanted to enjoy themselves, and they would always break. They would always try to make you break character, or like I was telling you before with Mexican America. I'll never forget. We're wrestling in Kansas at a house show, and the crowd is just on my partner. Bad, not wrestling wise. Please don't. I mean, they were literally chanting, "Please don't get in the ring." Please don't get in the ring. And then I tag him in to do moves, and they're asking. There's like this whole section chanting, "Please tag out. Please tag out. Please tag out." And what can you do? I mean, I can't keep a straight face, or I'm crying laughing because they're telling you. These people are literally telling you, "Bring homicide in. This is not working." And that happened a lot of house shows.
That would be insane. I can only imagine the pressure and like trying not to break character in the moment. It must be pretty tough sometimes.
It's ridiculous because they're expecting LAX Hernandez to be Mexican American and keep the group together. It's very hard when you tag this guy and the crowd groans, or or the crowd heckles him to death until I come back in the ring. It's very awkward.
Yeah. So going back a little bit to what we're talking about, what was your experience like first meeting Santana and Ortiz?
I met them at an indie show in Jersey All Pro. It was me and Homicide versus them two. Maybe I think the year before they became the new LAX, and they were man, they were money. They were on point. We had a great match with those guys. They're very respectful, very humble, and very hungry to get better. And I mean, we had a great match, and they were still asking questions. Well, how could I get a little bit better doing this, this, and this? And they were great students of the game, man.
Yeah. I still enjoy watching them on AEW. They came in as Pride and Powerful, and now they're just called Santana Ortiz. It just better, but great team. Yeah, I love working. I love watching them.
Well, the problem, I think, one thing that has hindered me in Homicide as well as hindered Santana Ortiz a lot as well is when you have such a great mouthpiece as Conan. When you don't have Conan with you, it brings the level down. Whether it's me at Homicide, whether it's Santana Ortiz, whether it's the 5150 in MLW, once you you take the Conan factor away, it brings the level down. No matter how good you do producing a ring, you're still doing the same, just the magnitude. I mean, this guy brings the intensity every time and ups the level of the whole wrestling aspect. So when you don't have him there, look, I mean, Santana Ortiz are probably doing the same stuff they did in Impact that they're doing AEW. I don't know, but they probably are. Now imagine if Conan was ringside.
Yeah.
Already appear and step down, here.
Yeah. And yeah, speaking on Conan, like it's for me the most impressive thing, especially where I'm up to rewatching TNA, is you and the Dudleys had like what 4, 5, 6 matches like back to back to back, and it was never boring. I'll never watch the same match 6 times anywhere else. I'll be like, fuck off. Like I'm not watching the same 6 times. But you guys, every time I was excited, every pay per view I was invested. Because of Conan, because of you guys, because of Bubba, Team 3. It's just you guys kept it fresh, kept it original, even though you were wrestling the same opponents 5, 6 times in a row.
Well, I remember wrestling 3D as baby faces, as heels, and baby faces again, and with Conan and with Bubba and with Homicide being great storytellers. You weren't bored. You were invested in that next feud, whether I'm the good guy or they're the good guy or no one's a good guy. They're great storytellers, and it worked out very well. That's probably a big aspect that's missing in wrestling today. Is once these guys have a great match, they're not as good of a storyteller to extend that for a month, let alone a week. Once they have a great match, that's it. Let me have a great match with someone else. And that's that the storytelling of wrestling is really, really, really dying now.
Yeah. Working with TNA, did you find it hard or did you find it difficult because with the time restraints they had? Because I know TNA back then it was short, like the early 2007ish. It was like 15 minutes long, like an hour. Did you find it hard to fit everything in?
Well, Vince Russo doesn't get enough credit on this. People can say what they want about Vince. One of Vince's best attributes was he could fit 20 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. You know what I'm saying? He made sure he got every wrestler on the show. It might be a 3-minute segment. It might be a 2-minute segment. It might be a 4-minute match or 8-minute match, but he managed to fit as many wrestlers on the show as possible. And he was really, really good at that. Now, he gets a bad rap otherwise, but as far as getting wrestlers in a small time constraint, because you realize in an hour show, you're only getting 43 minutes of TV. Look how many wrestlers he fit in 43 minutes. So, I mean, you have to give the guy some credit on that part because he made sure these guys got paid, got TV time, and so where the crowd could be invested for a heel face to boo or cheer these guys in that 2-minute span. So, I mean, I have to give him 1,000% credit on getting as many wrestlers as possible in a 43-minute time slot.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel what you're saying too, because watching back, there is a lot going on in such a short time. It's quite special because obviously these days WWE is 3 hours, I think. AEW is 2 hours, so it's like to fit all that in, it's crazy.
Oh yes, you have to, whatever you want to say about Vince Russo, this and that, but man, he worked it out. Whether you got 90 seconds, he made sure you had the best 90 seconds of your career for that time. And it worked out where everyone got over, everyone got the crowd invested, whether it's heel or face. They knew exactly if you were heel or face or if they liked you or not liked you. So when you did have a match, it meant something.
Yeah. Yeah, nah. Like as I said, I definitely feel that. Do you think you and Homicide and Conan that that version of LAX, do you think that would fit in wrestling today as we know it, with society the way it is? Do you think it would still work as good as it did back then?
Most definitely. I mean, I have to say it. Hispanics, especially in America, are the backbone of America as far as blue collar, and we have the least respect as far as politically, political wise. We have more outspoken minorities, and even the gay and lesbian and trans community have bigger mouthpieces in the United States than Hispanics do. We are here to work, support our families, educate our kids to get better than us. And whether we talk out loud about it or not, we're still going to work. We're still going to support our kids and make sure they're the better versions of ourselves. So it's still, LAX will still work, if not better now than then.
Yeah, yeah. Would you ever consider, like, or I guess should I say, have you ever, you know, been given the idea or had the opportunity, like in your mind, to bring back LAX today?
Me and Homicide we talk regularly, and I don't know what the deal is. It's like when I'm in Impact, he's in NWA. When I'm not, well, I tried. Obviously, when I was in Impact, when I was doing the Johnny Swinger stuff, I every taping I was asking to bring back. Hey, let's do LAX. He does the same thing, whether it's NWA or wherever he's at, and no one's having it. I don't know if it's conflict or money or what it is, but I mean, brother, no one's dumb. When me and Homicide ring together, we're magic, and whatever maybe it's some people don't like me or some people don't like him or political issues or Conan issue or money issue, but brother, we've been trying to get this thing going since like 2018. So that's he's doing his separate thing. I'm doing my separate thing, and we meet up. I think we tag probably about 2 or 3 times a year, and it works out really well. And people are excited about it, but never long term.
Yeah. I'm curious. Have you ever thought, or maybe you haven't, and maybe it didn't go anywhere. But have you ever thought about or been given an idea about AEW? Because I know Santana and Ortiz.
Yeah. But I've been wrestling 25 years now, man. I'm not asking nobody or begging anybody for a job. This is the age of social media. Everyone knows, everyone can get a hold of everyone, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. I don't know what they have, WhatsApp. So everyone knows how to get a hold of everyone now. I mean, just think when I was wrestling in Japan, somebody from Japan found my phone number in 2000 on a landline. So if AEW is good or if WB is good or Impact is good without me and Homicide there, cool. We're still going to make our money somewhere else.
Yeah. That would be a dream come true for me. If that ever happened, like, oh, that would be sick. Hopefully one day, maybe. So what are you getting up to these days, in the present time?
Well, I help run a small promotion here in Texas. We run from Austin all the way to Laredo, and it's right down I-35. I do CWE in Canada with Danny Duggan. The Knight family in England, I wrestle with them in Norwich. Soraya, the former Paige from WWE, her family. And man, just trying to pass my knowledge down to my students. I have one student who just turned 21. He's about 6'9", about 450 pounds, probably the biggest Hispanic guy you've ever seen in your life.
It.
And I'm really invested in getting him into different things because he looks like a building and he should be making money somewhere.
Yeah.
So, that's me right now. I mean, I love traveling different countries, passing knowledge down, and then obviously work with my big guy is awesome, man. I wish someone could mentor me like I'm doing him, where the do's and don'ts and the etiquette of wrestling and different things like that. Because I struggled for like 7 years before I finally got my first TV contract. I don't want the guys I'm training to have the same issues.
Yeah. Nah, that's that's a very, cool and humble thing, passing on your knowledge because I can only imagine, and this is just speculation, I can only imagine there are a bunch of, legends or old timers who don't want to, be humble, who don't want to train the youth. I can only imagine. So
well, I'm just letting you know when I first started, I had this many mentors. I'm not trying to be negative about things that happened in my career at the beginning, but you have to realize who is training you. Let's say he was some guy who's training you was a jobber in WWE in the 70s or 80s. He's going to train you as good as he was trained. So if his highest plateau was being a jobber for WWE in the 80s, how is he going to teach you to be a WWE superstar in the 2000s? I'm not trying to be negative or rude at all, but I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
So me passing my knowledge, I made up to upper upper middle card almost to the main all the time. So at least I can train my students to be like that on television to get the middle to upper middle card.
Yeah, so. Yeah. No, and I'm sure they have bright futures ahead of them coming from you. So
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
So do you have a dream match in your head of someone who's wrestling currently, someone who wrestled in the past, who's not here, anyone that you haven't wrestled that you think would be a dream match for you?
No. I was very blessed to wrestle Kurt Angle, Sting, AJ Styles, Bobby Roode. Those guys were probably the best guys I've wrestled in TNA. I mean, I got to be managed by Ric Flair. I got Hulk Hogan to introduce me to the ring one time. Man, I've wrestled Jeff Hardy. I'm good. I mean, all the guys that I saw on TV before I made it, I get to wrestle these guys too. Wrestling 3D for felt like 5 years straight, which was, but it wasn't. And it was wrestling Christian Cage and guys like that. Those guys were awesome, and I wouldn't trade that experience for anything in the world. But I'm good, man. Me giving singles matches against Kurt Angle, me having singles matches against Sting was just unbelievable, and I'm very grateful for that. And one rule I teach my kids is don't be greedy, man. Don't be greedy. Take what you got and enjoy it, and that's what I've been doing.
Nice. I love it. I love that mentality. Just real quick, it's like what just briefly, what is it like? Because as fans, we watch the live or the taped product. We see the matches in the ring, obviously. But how much work goes backstage to make sure that match happens the way it does?
Man, it's a lot harder than you think. There's every camera angle. There's the gorilla position where the agent's watching on the monitors. Every camera, say there's 8 cameras, there's 8 different monitors on the ground. And there's obviously the ref with the earpiece telling you how much more time you have, because if you go over, that next match is less, especially in pay-per-view. Now the tape matches, they can edit and stuff like this, but when those we had the live TVs, we had live pay-per-views. Man, if that say that pay-per-view was supposed to end at 11 and you have like 4 minutes left in your match, do you realize how many hundreds of $1,000s it cost to go over to show the rest of that match? No, that's not me. I'm not. Like I like to tell a lot of people when I first started with TNA, before I got signed, man, I was making like $8 an hour unloading trucks and lucky to make $100 on a wrestling show. So you're gonna pay me $60,000-$70,000 a year to start. I'm not going back to unloading them trucks for $8 an hour. So you want this match ended at 7 minutes, brother? This match is gonna end at 6:59.
Was it hard to like? Were you ever in a situation where you're like, shit, the time I have to wrap this up quick and make it seem believable that the end's happening the way it is, even though you're running a bit late?
Not really, because I mean, you have that ref with the earpiece. He's telling you, "Hey, yeah, this is it. This is it." So it's very almost foolproof to where you're not doing, unless you're just nervous or you're a newbie out there. You have people coaching you through it between myself, the other wrestler, or even if it's a tag match and the ref right there. And if you're still not getting the cue, they'll send another ref out there to tell that ref, hey, take this match home.
Wow. Nah, that's super insightful and cool to know. Well, there you go. Like, yeah, because I mean, there have been times where, for other companies where I feel like there must have been some mistake because I feel like the ending felt rushed and I'm like, no way this is meant to happen the way it did.
Most definitely, because the guys aren't listening. The ref has that earpiece in. He's not making as much as the guys that are wrestling, obviously. He don't want to get fired. So if so every say it's a 10-minute match. Once he gets the cue from the gorilla position, the match starts. All right, 1 minute went down, 2 minute went down. So you get a minute by minute play from the ref. You're not dumb. He's literally telling you how much more time you have left to finish the match. So if he's telling you this and you're still not cooperating, that ref's not dumb. He knows he don't want to lose his job. He's I'm sure he's some are mic'd up, some are not. You can see the ref telling them, hey, 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left, 1 minute left. For the love of God, please end this match.
I mean, surely you think sometimes in that situation, refs will just count the three, like to make sure it ends.
Well, if they were told to, yes.
Yeah, exactly. Nah, that's like I said, as a wrestling fan, that's super insightful to to know. So it's a super structured thing the whole way through.
Time is money, man. Time is money, especially on television.
Yeah. Nah, that's super cool. So I'm curious, what are your do you have any other goals in towards the future that you're working on? Anything that you're hoping or planning to do?
And I'm trying to get all these kids out of my house. I have 3 kids. My wife has 3 kids, and we're down to the last 3. One's a senior, one's a junior, one's a freshman.
Yeah.
My goal is to get all of them to college and get them out of my house. That's my immediate future right there.
Fair enough. So pretty much one of the last questions I want to ask you is, knowing that you told me that your dad was part of the military and very strict upbringing, was he ever vocal or have any opinions on your LAX character? Because it must have been complete opposite.
That's a very, very good question. And I'm very rarely asked that, and I will gladly tell you. So in 2006, LAX is hot. I mean, white hot as far as heels. Everybody wanted us to get our ass kicked. So any babyface we went to was automatically a hero. So I don't know if you remember when LAX was threatening to burn the American flag. Bro, it was so bad that the police chief of the city of Orlando came to Universal Studios and threatened to shut the whole production down because we're trying to burn the American flag. And we had realized, hey, this part of wrestling, this is part of the storyline, this and that. There's still at that time, my dad's watching the show. He sees me standing there with the American flag, and we have flickering over this. My dad hasn't watched it since. This was '06. He hasn't watched me wrestle on TV since then. He was a Green Beret for 30 years. He did 3 tours in Vietnam. He retired as an E9 after 30 years and refused to watch the show ever again. Because after he did that, he taught self-defense at the police academy in Houston. And he just called me one day and said, I'm never watching your show again. And just hung up.
Oh man, what a story. Oh man, like what was going through your mind when you were doing it? You must have been like, oh shit, oh shit.
Oh, I knew. Don't answer the phone. I knew because luckily it was taped. I was going, man, as soon as it airs, I'm going to get 85 million phone calls for one number. Because it's already bad enough because we're playing gangsters and hoodlums and stuff like that. And he goes, my father's always, oh, you went to college, you play college football. Why are you doing this gangster thing? I go, Dad, it's television. I didn't, I had no tattoos, and now I'm all tatted up. And he's like, "What are you doing?" It's just a different culture, because he's like 82 now, so he didn't get it at all. He didn't understand this entertainment, this is television, this is how things work. And man, he was so against anything I did with LAX. It was both awesome and very weird that my dad refused to understand this entertainment. Those old timers, they're stuck in their head. You know how it goes, man. If they see something on TV, it has to be real. So we see guys trying to light the American flag up.
There must have been so there must have been between you, Homicide, and Conan at the time. Was there like a feeding off each other's energy, like, oh, we have to go higher, 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 like do something worse, do something more controversial, like feeding off each other's energy?
Conan came up with all that, man. He was so creative that he came up with every angle he came up with, and it worked. And hats off to him, because I mean, I don't think LAX would took off a third of what it would have if he wouldn't have came up with some of that stuff.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a crazy story, and just a crazy legacy that with the LAX that you've left behind, and what it's become to represent, what it's become, across wrestling fans. Because I'm part of a lot of wrestling groups on social media, and we talk about you guys all the time, and just how much impact you had, no pun intended, and just how much how dominant and how memorable the LAX was. And to this day, like I said, still my favorite top 5 tag teams of the modern era. So
the cool thing about that era was, like we were talking earlier about not interacting with white fans and stuff like that. It was so culture shocked. If you can see from we started in March of '06, by the end of the summer, August, September, every person, white, black, green, purple, had an LAX t-shirt and was doing the LAX signs to the camera. So they had to turn his babyface. But I mean, it was just nuts. I remember the first year you get paid quarterly for merchandise sales, and we're making 5,000 a quarter. Now, let me help you. The company got 95% of the merch sales. Myself, I'm sorry, me, Homicide, and Conan, because there's three of us, we split 5%. And my check was 5,000 a quarter just for those t-shirts. So imagine what the company's making. That, it's ridiculous. Now everyone's, hey, you got one of those LAX t-shirts. I go, yeah, but I'm not selling them. And everyone, at the time, everyone had one. I mean, look back on the old Impact tapings from 06 and 07, at least a third of the crowd has an LAX shirt on. And as soon as they hear those gunshots, everyone's doing this. It don't matter what color you were, they were doing that. And it was pretty cool, man.
Nah, it definitely was. I still pump every time I see you guys' entrance and I watch old tapings. I'm like, oh shit, like the LAX. You guys, yeah, you were original, you were unique, creative, you were the whole package, and you being so athletic and being the height you are, it's really it's very rarely seen, So that's also a credit to you.
I had to, man, because I mean, you have Conan doing all the creative stuff. You had Homicide putting the matches together, and so unpredictable. What the fuck am I gonna do? I can't just stand there, So I mean, let's make some magic, see what happens.
I've seen so many matches, pay-per-view matches where I've seen you like go to like suicide dive and then get hit with a chair on the way
down.
Yeah. Oh shit!
Oh yeah, because you have to realize when you're 300 pounds and you want to dive on someone, much like the border toss, how many people are going to say yes? Let's be realistic. I mean, looking back in my career, especially back then, because most of the teenage wrestlers were smaller, more athletic. I'm thinking like they would, if I was 200 pounds, why would I want some 300-pound guy throwing me backwards and then diving on me? So, I mean, I understand. I mean, it took me years to understand, but now I totally understand because, man, I know if I was 100 pounds smaller than someone, or me, and a lot of times even more, why would I want this guy diving on me and then throwing me backwards? So I definitely empathize with those guys now. I did at the time because I just wanted to make sure the match would look really cool. But now I understand, hey, man, maybe you shouldn't even ask to dive on a 180-pound man when you're like 310.
Well, still credit where credit's due. Every time I saw you doing those feats, it's just like it was a ghastly moment. I was like, oh shit. It was yeah, it's incredible. And yeah, look, that's all I have for you today. And it's been such an honor talking to you. And I learned so much. You're so nice, and that's another thing. It's like I see your thuggish hood character on LAX, and then for you to be so nice, it's like, oh shit, that's so cool, So thank you again.
Not a problem, man. Trust me, you have a dad who was in the military for 30 years, beating you if you get a C on your report card, or beating you because you didn't finish your chores. You'll be respectful to everyone else too.
I can only imagine. But look, I'm gonna get this get this cleaned up like I always do, and then I'll send it your way, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Awesome, bro. Thank you for everything, man.
Thank you again. Have a good one.
All right, you too, sir.